Dear Ms. Joanna Marovic, Acting Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for European Affairs, liebe Frau Steinacker, Vice President of Südosteuropa-Gesellschaft, and highly esteemed former colleague, if I may say so, dear Daliborka Uljarevic, ladies and gentlemen. To link to what Minister Marovic said, indeed, for my government, it is a real wish that Montenegro joins as soon as possible the European Union. And we are pleased to see that basically all Montenegrin politicians express their full commitment to Montenegro's accession to the EU. And according to the most recent polls, 76% of the population want to see their country as an EU member state. But strangely enough, the European Commission's progress report on Montenegro, which was presented just 2 weeks ago, identifies limited progress with regard to the reforms and other steps necessary in the accession process. And it notes, I just quote, polarization, the absence of constructive engagement between political parties, and the failure to build consensus on key matters of national interest. And if I may say so, following the parliamentary debate last Friday, it seemed a little bit as if politicians wanted, if I may say so, confirm this assessment by the European Commission. The progress report also reminds us that at the Berlin Process Sofia summit in 2020, the Western Balkans region embarked on an ambitious plan to establish a common regional market. And further down on the same page of the progress report of the European Union, the report states, and I quote again, "The Open Balkans initiative can play a positive role in the process, provided it is based on EU rules and remains inclusive towards all Western Balkans partners," unquote. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the common regional market is a key element for strengthening an inclusive integration of the Western Balkans region, and that it is an important approach for bringing the Western Balkans countries, each at its own pace, into the European Union, because the regional common market is based on the EU acquis. And yes, we know that the process making the common regional market a reality has been slow, not so much for substantive reasons, of course, but because of the bilateral problems between at least two of Montenegro's neighboring countries. But last Friday, there was good news coming from Berlin, from the meeting of the Berlin Process foreign ministers. After 2 rounds of hard negotiations between the Berlin Process Sherpas of the 6 Western Balkan countries, led by German Special Representative for the Western Balkans, Mr. Manuel Sarrazin, these meetings took place in Berlin. Agreement in substance was reached on the so-called 3 mobility agreements. And former Foreign Minister Ranko Krivokapic, who was sitting next to our Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock at the meeting in Berlin, afterwards tweeted, "Berlin process is powerfully returning to the Western Balkans." Yes? And this was a tweet that I happily retweeted. So on the 3rd of November, when the heads of government of the Berlin Process countries gather in Berlin upon the invitation of the Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the heads of government of the Western Balkan countries will hopefully be authorized and able to formally sign the 3 agreements, which will enable people in the Western Balkans to cross borders using only their ID cards. Universities will mutually recognize diploma, and employers will be able to accept professional qualifications from abroad, notably for doctors of medicine and dental medicine and architects. Taken together, these 3 agreements would clear the way for the creation of the regional common market, which is not a Western European idea, but enjoys the full support of all 6 Western Balkans countries, and is actually being implemented by 2 existing key regional organizations, the RCC, Regional Cooperation Council, and CEFTA, the Central European Free Trade Agreement. And it is important that all 6 countries are on board. I guess no country will appreciate this inclusive approach more than Montenegro, bearing in mind that your country has borders with 4 out of the 5 Western Balkans countries and is located, so to speak, in the heart of the Western Balkans. And it is obvious, I would say, the benefits from a common regional market, like increased trade, increased foreign investments, and so on, and the ensuing economic growth will be maximized only when all countries are on board, and when at the same time the rules of the common regional market promote integration into the EU single market. But let me briefly come back to the Berlin process, because it is more than about promoting the common regional market. It has been designed as an inclusive platform to solve all kinds of problems and promote all kinds of integration between the 6 Western Balkans countries in an EU-compatible manner. And a lot has been achieved already. Think of the green lanes, of the creation of RICO, the Regional Youth Cooperation Organization, or of the abolishment of roaming charges between the Western Balkans countries, and there is more to come. The Berlin process interior ministers at their meeting in Berlin last Thursday discussed, among other things, further alignment of visa regimes, cooperation in the protection of borders, and cooperation in the fight against human smuggling. And foreign ministers at their meeting last Friday not only consented on the mobility agreements, but also agreed on a new culture fund to support Western Balkans cross-border cultural activities. And Germany committed to make a substantial financial contribution to this new fund. And they discussed further cooperation on cybersecurity issues, which is very relevant, not least for Montenegro, given the recent massive attack from which the government continues to suffer until today. And yesterday, Berlin process economy and energy ministers, again in Berlin, discussed energy security in the face of the consequences of Putin's war of aggression against Ukraine, as well as further steps towards a fossil-free economy and towards implementation of the green agenda, which will also be one of the key issues at the summit itself on the 3rd of November. Apart from the purely governmental events, there is more. Today there is the Business Forum, the Western Balkans Business Forum in Berlin, organized by the Ostausschuss der deutschen Wirtschaft and by the Federation of the German Chambers of Commerce and Industry. There will be a civil society forum on the 1st and 2nd of November, and the Youth Forum from 31st of October to 3rd November. So a whole line-up of events, and maybe to conclude, believe me, my government is really trying its best to revive the Berlin process, to demonstrate its usefulness to all 6 countries of the Western Balkans, and to prepare for concrete outcomes, tangible for the people in the Western Balkans. Maybe I stop here because it's supposed to be introductory remarks, but there was a number of, how should I say, things to tell and inform you about. Thank you for having me here on this introductory panel, and wish you good deliberations in the course of the day on an issue which is, as I understand, strongly debated in Montenegro and, of course, is of relevance to the further course of developing the common regional market and in the end of Montenegro's accession to the European Union. Thank you.